All right, everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome. And thank you so much for joining us tonight for Palmer Presents the Institute Exchange of Baha'i at PMI. My name is April Finley, and I am the Assistant Site Manager here at the Charlotte Hawkins Brown Museum. It's my pleasure to welcome you to the first of this new learning series, and it's going to consist of virtual and in-person learning experiences for everyone who is interested in learning more about Dr. Brown, the Palmer Memorial Institute, and many other topics that are associated with the history that we tell here. Today's program, the Institute Exchange, a Baha'i at PMI, will explore the connections between the Baha'i Faith community and our campus here at Palmer Memorial Institute. We're joined by Ms. Tasha Curry-Corcoran of the Atlantic Regional Baha'i Council to learn more about this connection. So before we get started, here's a couple housekeeping things to keep in mind. We are in Zoom webinar. I did not enable the chat right before, so that's on me. I apologize. But please feel free to interact with us throughout the Q&A. We can still see those, and I am able to respond to you all in some ways through the chat. You just won't be able to respond there. But like I said, if you want to type something in, please use the Q&A. You can also use that Q&A for any questions that come up for you during the program. Please feel free to type any of those in at any time, and we will get to them right at the end of this session. Okay, this session is also going to be recorded, as you heard a little bit earlier, and is going to be posted to the Charlotte Hawkins Brown YouTube at a later date. My hope is to get it up by this weekend. We shall see. We're going to work on it. So if you do not know where our page is located, please look at the Q&A, and one of the answered questions is the link directly to our YouTube page. Right before we get started and before I introduce our speaker, I'm going to give you all just a little bit of background about the Palmer Memorial Institute and Dr. Charlotte Hawkins Brown. All right. Palmer Memorial Institute was founded in October of 1902 by a 19-year-old Henderson, North Carolina native, Dr. Charlotte Hawkins Brown. She had been teaching in the Sedalia community for a year at Bethany Institute, which was a school run by Bethany Church by the American Missionary Association. The church sits right across the street from where our campus is today. At the end of the 1901 to 1902 school year, Bethany Institute was closed due to the AMA's lack of funding. Dr. Brown returned to Cambridge, Massachusetts, which is where she grew up. Even though she was born here in North Carolina, she grew up north. She went there to fundraise for another educational facility here in Sedalia. She received the help for this endeavor from her mentor, Miss Alice Freeman Palmer. At the end of that summer, Dr. Brown raised enough to purchase a two-story blacksmith shop to begin her school. Now, I want to introduce and bring on our speaker for today. We have Miss Tasha Curry-Corcoran. Give it up, give it up. Hi. Ms. Tasha Curry-Corcoran currently serves as an Assistant Secretary for the Regional Baha'i Council of the Atlantic States, and her work is currently focused on building a human resource system for the region. Tasha is an organizational development leader for over 25 years and has experience working with Fortune 500 technology companies, as well as retail, military, and community development organizations. She's an award-winning member of the Association for Talent Development, holds a master's degree in human and organizational learning from George Washington University, and a BA in foreign affairs from the University of Virginia. Ms. Curry-Corcoran is the daughter and granddaughter of Black Trailblazers, the mother of two emerging young adult daughters, and the wife of a fearless beekeeper, and the housemate of one adorable but troublesome, don't forget the troublesome, beagle. At her home in Pittsburgh, you can find her trying new vegan recipes, planning her next escape to the beach, we love, and singing songs from the Wicked soundtrack, which we love even more. You all, please help me welcome Ms. Tasha Curry-Corcoran.
Thank you so much, April. I'm really happy to be here.
We are happy to have you. So I want to tell you all just a little bit about how we're going to flow for tonight. So we've had our intro, we've had our introduction of our speaker. We're going to talk a little bit about her first trip here to the Palmer Memorial Institute. And then we're going to talk a little bit about those connections that we found throughout her time here. At the end of our program, we're going to take a quick tour around campus virtually so that you all can see some of the places that she made connections with during her visit to Palmer. So, Ms. Asha, can you tell us about your first experience here at Palmer's campus?
I sure can. So I came here back in August, And I didn't know anything about Charlotte Hawkins Brown or about the Palmer Institute. I had asked my friend Chandra where we might want to hold an event. I was thinking about holding a Black Women's Day of Rest event somewhere in the Triad, and she said, I have the perfect place. And so we arranged to come and take a tour and see the grounds and see the event spaces. And oh my goodness, it was just so amazing. And I discovered all these connections to my life, to the Baha'i Faith, and to you, April. So it was great.
Yes, so we're going to talk about one of those connections right quick because I want to give y'all a lay of the land before we talk deeper about some of those connections. So, I have been doing a deep dive into the Sedalia Singers. The Sedalia Singers was the choir for Palmer Memorial Institute. I am a choir girly. I love a good spiritual. I love a good hymn in 4 to 7 part harmony. Amen. We love it, right? So I needed to know what songs was the choir singing when they were in their heyday, right? So in this research, I came across the name Amy Bailey, who was the choir director primarily late 20s through the mid 30s, right? And so her name, the most information that I could find about her was written through a Bahaipedia article. Now, the author of the article, I believe, is in our audience today.
Yeah.
So, Stephen, that's who actually put our Facebook link, not Facebook link, YouTube link in there. So y'all give him a shout out or just clap for him also
Hey,
because
we love Stephen. He's amazing.
he gave us such great information about how Miss Amy was doing during her time here at Palmer, what she did before, and all of those great things. So that's how I learned about who Miss Amy was and what faith she was a part of. When Tasha was talking, as we were walking up and down the Alice Freeman Palmer Plaza, she mentioned that she was a member of the faith. And I said, well, did you know? Our choir director too was a Baha'i. And she was like, I did not. And thus this program was born. And we are going to be doing so much more. Let me tell y'all, we found out so much good information in the time that we've spent together these past couple of weeks. And it has been insanely amazing. So before we talk a little bit about some of those connections, let's set the scene for what it was like when Miss Amy Bailey was here during her time at Palmer, right? So over the years, we said earlier that Palmer was born in 1902, but over the years, Palmer grew in size, student-wise and land-wise. By the 40s, there were stately brick buildings around the campus, cottages to house Dr. Brown and all the other teachers. There was a campus snack shop and a teaching farm and so much more. Students have been coming from all over the United States to be enrolled here, and some even came from international locations to be educated under the tutelage of the First Lady of Social Graces. The school's curriculum reflected Dr. Brown's ideals of knowing the correct thing to do, to say, and to wear. Those in the know, though, that's her book. We have it here. It's great. And the school's curriculum was based around that. Some of the education outside of the classroom that the students were getting was based around the correct thing to do, to say, to wear for every social situation. For instance, students were dressing up for dinner. They practiced how to engage in polite conversation with one another, sometimes in Canary Cottage, learned how to play cards, and learned how to entertain others through that school's focus on social graces. Dr. Brown was also a very religious and spiritual person. She incorporated chapel and prayer time into her students' day. There was a meditation altar on campus, and that was known for folks to go sit, pray, meditate, sometimes a timeout spot if you weren't up to acting up to Dr. Brown's standards at the time. But her deep faith connection will enhance the school's most well-known extracurricular activity, the Sedalia Singers. Not only was this an artistic outlet for the students, it was also one of the major fundraising entities for Palmer's campus. On many of the fundraising trips to the Northeast, Dr. Brown brought the Sedalia Singers to showcase the talent of her students. The main group would sing, spirituals especially, and there were several ensembles within the group. There was an interpretive dance arm, there were single sex ensembles, there were mixed voice ensembles, all the good things. As early as 1927, the choir was led by Amy Bailey. During her time at Palmer, or prior to her time at Palmer, she was performing throughout the Northeast, mainly in prominent Black community spaces in New York City. She had engagements with her sister as well in places like Boston and New Hampshire, so she was well versed in the Northeast. She continued to perform solos during her engagements with the Sedalia Singers as well, and she also helped craft a lot of those concerts around the spirituals that were sung and featuring which different vocal groups. She also accompanied Dr. Brown to many of the conferences that she was going to during her time as a PMI faculty. Dr. Brown was a booked and busy woman. She was always on the go. And so when she wasn't raising money for Palmer or running the school itself, a lot of times you could find her at maybe an NAACP conference or at National Council of Negro Women conference because she also held a lot of positions in nationwide organizations. Around 1935, Amy Bailey left Palmer and went to school at Cheyney University. We'll talk more about that later. We'll save all the Easter eggs then. But she returned in 1938 and departed from the school finally in 1940 to work at L. Richardson Memorial Hospital in Greensboro. And so this is where we want to start talking a lot about our connections because there are a lot. So, Miss Tasha, can you provide us with some background about the Baha'i Faith and what might have drawn Miss Amy Bailey to the faith and to Palmer?
Sure, I'd love to. So, a very short explanation of what the Baha'i Faith is that the Baha'i Faith is God's most up-to-date guidance for how we can create inner peace within ourselves as individuals, and then how we can create peace within the world, right? We believe that we are able, Baha'is believe that we're able to transform ourselves spiritually. And so by doing that, at the same time, we can help transform our community and help it to transform spiritually as well. And we engage in acts of service. And when these acts of service are done collectively, we could bring about the peace that is needed both within ourselves, in our communities, in our families, in our organizations, and ultimately throughout the world. So, a more factual definition of what the Baha'i Faith is that it is an independent monotheistic religion. It is established in practically every country in the world. There's about 5 million Baha'is that are registered and millions more who are involved in Baha'i-inspired community activities and community building processes across the world. The central teaching of the Baha'i Faith is unity of humanity under one God. And there's many principles in the Baha'i Faith, some of which are the unity of the races and elimination of prejudice, equality of women and men, universal education, the elimination of extremes of wealth and poverty. We believe there's a spiritual solution to our economic problems that we face. We know that there's harmony between science and religion. We believe in the independent investigation of the truth. So those are some of the principles that we believe in. And my guess is that Amy Bailey was attracted to all of these principles, right? So she, became a Baha'i. We don't know exactly what the story was about how she encountered the faith or what the story of her formal enrollment in the faith was. But it was in the 30s, right, where there's deep segregation in the South and in the North as well, really. And the Baha'is were and are very much not segregated. And so they were holding meetings and they were espousing these universalist principles that were very attractive to someone like Amy, who clearly traveled, clearly learned a lot about the world, was artistic, was curious, was interested in education. So I'm sure that all of these different principles were attractive to her. And someone who is, into spirituals, I'm sure that the teachings and the writings of the Baha'i Faith were very attractive to her as well. So.
Absolutely. I love it. So we talked a little bit about we not knowing exactly how she came to the Baha'i Faith, but we know that there was a growing community here in Greensboro.
Mhm.
So that's, about 10 minutes, if that, away from Sedalia where we are. Can you talk a little bit about what the Greensboro Baha'i community was engaging in the 30s and 40s?
Yes, yeah. So, I mean, it was small, but it was small little revolutionary bunch, right? I mean, they were out here, having these integrated meetings. They were having integrated prayer gatherings
Mhm.
and holy days. There were, she was a leader in the group. She was actually, so what she's actually most noted for in terms of the development of the faith is that she was part of the group that was like the precursor to the very first what's called a local spiritual assembly in North Carolina. So she helped to bring about that formal administrative body that existed in the faith. So it's pretty amazing. And so she was actually the secretary of their group. And it was just before she actually left and moved to follow a new job just before that assembly was elected. But yeah, she helped do that, and part of how she helped that was that she invited some folks or she helped post and probably invited some folks to the Palmer Institute and around the area in order to come and teach more folks in the North Carolina area about the Baha'i faith and the Baha'i teachings and to uplift them. I think during this time, this was World War II
Mhm.
when she was doing these invitations, and of course. That's a really challenging time to be living during a war. People are feeling, probably quite despondent about the situation, and there's a lot of pressure, a lot of economic pressure, a lot of social pressures, a lot of, not being clear about, what the future holds. And the Baha'i faith offers a lot of hope and promises that this time that we're going through, the time of World War II and the time really that we're in now, right? That, humanity is going through a lot of challenges as it matures to really becoming the world that it can be. This world where, we're all part of one human family, that where the earth is but one country and mankind is its citizens. And, she had that vision and she wanted to share that vision with other people in North Carolina. And so she helped foster these discussions that were happening. And yeah, so it was really great to be able to offer this message of hope to people during wartime. And this message of hope is still here for us today.
Yes. So you mentioned it right on there, that there were other folks who came to Palmer who are associated with the Baha'i Faith.
Yes.
So can you talk a little bit about who those people were, when
Yep.
they came, and what their positions in the faith were?
Sure. So there were two women in particular that are noted in the record. Ruth Moffett, she came in March 1942, and then another woman named Dorothy Baker in November 1941. Both of these women were known in the faith for being really eloquent speakers and really great communicators. They taught all over the country, and then were especially effective here in North Carolina. We don't have clergy in the Baha'i faith.
Okay.
And so, every individual Baha'i is responsible for learning about the faith and finding ways to convey it to others. And then, of course, there are some people who are more eloquent than others. And so, they get more opportunities to go and travel and to share, the news of Baha'u'llah's revelation. And by the way, Baha'u'llah, who is the prophet founder of the Baha'i faith. And so, yeah, so Ruth Moffett and Dorothy Baker both were invited to come and speak at the Palmer Institute. And I would assume that Dr. Brown was probably involved with that. She herself might have learned about the Baha'i faith, during her travels, through the NAACP, through any of the other organizations that she was a part of, because Baha'is have been and continue to be involved with those organizations and partner with them. So, yeah.
I love because that is right into where we want to go with this. So, one of the reasons that we decided to make this a series is because we learned so much in the research preparing these notes for you all to have this conversation, learning about Ruth Moffett and her travels, learning about Dorothy Baker and her position within the faith, we're still trying to pinpoint exactly what Dr. Brown knew. So, that hopefully
Yeah.
will be another piece of this series as we continue to
Yeah.
learn more about these connections. So one of the other connections that we did discover was that this faith that I'm not sure how many people in the chat or folks who are here know a lot about the Baha'i faith, but as we were learning about who were prominent Baha'is just in history, my mind was blown. Okay, blown. So we found two, and Ms. Tasha, I want you to just talk all about them and what their connections were to the faith, if they may have known Amy Bailey, all of those good things. Because I am flabbergasted by how many folks in history are connected to the faith as well.
Yeah, it's really amazing, right? And I mean,
Mhm.
it's a small world. So,
Right?
so you mentioned earlier that Amy Bailey went to like graduate school or maybe to finish her undergraduate program at Cheney University.
Right.
Well, it turns out, and I didn't know this, thank you, Stephen, for this little piece of information, that Cheney University, the president and founder of what is arguably the first HBCU, I know it's a controversial topic,
I love it.
the first HBCU in the United States. His name was Leslie Pickney Hill, and he was a Baha'i, and had been for a long time. And so it's it's highly likely that Amy Bailey learned about the faith from him. Again, of course, she could have learned about it in New York as well.
Mhm.
But we also found out that that Leslie Hill was friends with a very famous Baha'i named Alan Locke. Alan Locke, you might know, right? I know it's very exciting. Alan Locke is known to most people as the dean of the Harlem Renaissance. He's a philosopher. He taught at Howard University, taught philosophy there, and but for Baha'is, he along with Leslie Hill, they were big founders of this movement within the faith called the racial amity movement or the race amity movement.
Mhm.
And these race amity conferences started in 1921, way before race amity was a very cool thing to talk about. And they hosted these meetings and they invited, members of the NAACP and other Black organizations, and, all sorts of folks to come in and have these discussions about how to, basically, because Baha'is believe that we should eliminate prejudice, these racial amity conferences were held in order to talk about racial issues within the United States and how to address that and how to create spaces for this. And there might be people on the chat who can talk more eloquently than I can about the race amity movement. But what I can tell you is that that movement, was in the early 20th century, and then in about 2011, it was revived by folks, and so it actually continues today. There is a Race Amity Day that happens each year, and there's a Race Amity organization that continues to push this discourse. Even amongst the current even in the current climate, it is still worth talking about. So.
I love it. I love it. And we actually had a question about what is racial amity. So are you able to answer that one right now?
I think so. So, I mean, race amity, another way of saying it is race
Mhm.
unity. It's really just this process of helping people to understand how the people that consider themselves of different races, how they can come together. Everything that we try to do in the Baha'i Faith is directed towards unity, to this theme of unity. And so, in the United States, racism is absolutely the most challenging issue, and so race amity is a way of addressing this issue directly and finding ways for people to come together and really appreciate the differences rather than find these differences as ways of polarizing us.
Very cool. Very cool. And they were doing this work when it really was not cool
Yeah.
at all in 1920s, 30s,
Jim
and
Crow
40s.
was,
That was a time. That was a
yeah,
time in our history. Yes. So we have one more thing before we transition over to showing you all our video, which we are both so very proud of. It's fun. So during your time on campus, and this is our perfect lead into it, you
yes.
talked a lot about how the pieces of campus reminded you of the faith. Can you give us a quick preview of about what we might see or kind of like the feelings that you got from walking through campus before we get started with our video?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I didn't really know what to expect when I came onto campus, and I didn't expect it to be as big as it was. I
Huge.
noted that it was called an institute. And so, in my mind, the term institute for me refers to the Ruhi Institute, which is the educational program that the Baha'i Faith community uses all around the world in order to help people to apply spiritual principles, to their lives, right? So it's a curriculum that, yeah, it's a curriculum that folks use around the world. And so here in the Triangle, there is actually a physical institute that is just south of UNC, and it's called the Triangle Baha'i Institute. And lots of our youth and children, people who are Baha'is and not Baha'is, mostly from the Chapel Hill Carborough area, they come there and they are able to learn and grow through children's classes and camps and also adult programs. And it's a really beautiful, wonderful place. And the Charlotte Hawkins Brown And the Palmer Memorial Institute was like a bigger version of like what this institute can grow into. And so it was beautiful to see.
I love it. I love it. And that is, like I said, a perfect intro into what you all are about to see. So during Miss Tasha's visit to Palmer Memorial Institute, we took a jaunt around the campus and she told us deeper about the connections between the faith, the campus, the Rui Institute, the Triangle Baha'i Institute, and all the work that they're doing with their youth, just like Dr. Brown was instilling in her students who are staying on campus here. So without further ado, we present a Baha'i at PMI, the video version. So we're going to go off camera. I'm going to share my screen and you'll see all the loveliness of our tour.
Hi everyone, my name is April Finley. I'm the Assistant Site Manager here at the Charlotte Hawkins Brown Museum, and I'm happy to welcome you to a Baha'i at PMI. Today's virtual program is going to explore all the different connections, past, present, between the Baha'i Faith community and the Palmer Memorial Institute. Earlier in our program, we talked a little bit about those past connections with some important figures in the Baha'i Faith community in Greensboro, who also had a presence here on Palmer Memorial Institute's campus. Today we have Ms. Tasha Curry-Corcoran, who is with the Atlantic Regional Baha'i Council. Can you tell us a little bit about your first visit to Palmer?
I came here with my friend Chandra Gwynn, who used to be the director of the Duke Black Cultural Center, and we were looking for an event space that we wanted to use for our friends, and she wanted to bring me to one of her favorite places, and so I'm so delighted that she brought me here, and we got to learn all these wonderful connections between the Baha'i Faith, between amazing Black women.
Come on.
So yeah, I'm so glad to be able to explore this with you again and go a little bit deeper.
Awesome. So join us on our journey. We're going to take a quick tour around campus, show you a couple of those special spots that sparked something in Miss Tasha while she was here on her first visit. Join us. Right, so we're here at our first stop. This is Charles Elliott Hall. This was our first male dorm here on Palmer's campus. It's built in the 1930s to house those overnight students who have been coming for a few years. And so now they finally had a place to lay their head overnight. This is a lot of the staff's, our favorite spots on campus, because you can just see so much of this beautiful campus, how it's laid out, all of those beautiful things from this one spot. So can you tell us a little bit about why this spot sparked something for you?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, this spot reminded me of the Triangle Baha'i Institute, which is located just south of UNC Chapel Hill. And, the really beautiful green lawn here is very similar to the Institute. And just having this wonderful space where people can come and learn and spend the night and really sort of have some intensity with their fellow learners. And, and really maybe even get away from, their sort of regular lives for a little bit, just so that they can come and learn in a space that's just sort of dedicated to education.
Yeah.
Right? And dedicated to learning how to cooperate with others. So, yeah. So this is like a bigger version of the Institute. It's really cool.
That is awesome. Like I said, this is one of all of our favorite spots to come and just kind of look out and, think back on what it was like to be a student at Palmer in the 30s and 40s and 50s.
Must have been amazing.
Right?
Yeah.
Right. You have so many beautiful things to see across campus. Of course, these cottages in the back, our teacher's cottage, Dr. Brown's home, Canary Cottage, is a beautiful place to reflect.
Absolutely.
As we were walking up to Dr. Brown's grave, you kind of pointed out this quote to me. Could you read it and kind of tell us why it spoke to you?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So this quote says, "The whole purpose of education is to help people to live their lives to the fullest and best." So this quote really spoke to me because really, the whole purpose of the Baha'i Faith is to educate mankind, right? And so the purpose of our lives, according to the Baha'i teachings, is to gain virtues and to gain knowledge so that we can continue to develop our souls in this world, so that we can prepare for the next world.
I love that.
Just like in the body, like when we were in the womb, like we developed eyes and we developed ears and we developed, all of the senses and things like that we needed for this world. Well, here in this world, here on Earth, here in this matrix, right, we have to develop our virtues so that we can be ready for the next world. And so in order to do that, we have to have education. And so that's really education from the point that you're a baby all the way until 99 plus. Right. And so the Baha'i Institute provides some structure for that, right? For, children who are like 5, all the way to 99. And then, I'm sure they're going to build something for the little ones at some point too. But, we have a process for how we're going to develop people's capacity in order to learn. And so, this is like education is life, right? Like this is what it's about.
Absolutely. So when you talk about how the Baha'i Institute is educating students and things like that, is that just here in the U.S. or is that worldwide with the faith?
It's worldwide. It's a worldwide curriculum. It's standard, so I could go to any country and they'll be learning essentially the same things that I'm learning here at the Triangle Baha'i Institute. And, and there's a series of books. I think there's 17 of them or something.
Wow.
Actually, there's a lot.
Yeah, okay.
They keep growing because they keep thinking about, okay, well, how else can we begin to apply these spiritual principles to this particular, aspect of human life, right?
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
So I know on your first visit, we talked a little bit about how educators are viewed. And we talked about how the Baha'i Institute educates people worldwide.
Yes.
So what is kind of the faith's view on educators as we're here paying our respects to Dr. Brown?
Yeah, educators are absolutely exalted in this faith, right? So as Baha'is, we believe that all humans are noble. Okay. But in order to bring out that nobility, people have to be educated. Right. And so those who dedicate their lives, dedicate their service to educating children and all others, adults as well, really have a special station in the Baha'i Faith. And that's all educators, not just Baha'i educators, not just people as part of the Baha'i Institute. So, coming here to Charlotte Hawkins Brown, to her resting place was really special. It was so nice. It's so beautiful. It's so beautiful. It's so just befitting for the life that she led and the legacy that she left. I got to come here with Chandra, who, is my friend and who really looks up to her. And I have another friend who heard I was coming and she was just like, oh, I can't wait for you to learn more about Dr. Brown and how much inspiration she's given to all sorts of educators around the world. And
that's beautiful. So we're here in the Alice Freeman Palmer Plaza. This was the site of our main academic building. The building was built in April of 1922 with 225,000 student-made bricks. It was a beautiful, beautiful staple in this community, honestly. Wow. This is where the students had their main education classes, where teachers had their offices. There was a library, an auditorium, and so much of the campus life took place in this building.
Amazing.
Sadly, it burned down in 1971 in February of the year, and that was one of the pieces of the decision that the school would close at the end of that school year. So sadly, we don't have the building anymore, but we still have a way to commemorate those who learned here. Folks can purchase bricks out here so that your name can forever be enshrined on the Palmer Memorial Institute's campus. And we also have other ways for folks to interact with the space during our annual events like Heritage Day or Christmas in Sedalia.
Nice.
Yep. And so another piece of this area is Stouffer Hall, and Stouffer was our science education building. And so in this building, you would have had student science labs and things like that. It was built a little later than the Alice Freeman Palmer building, so the architectural styles are slightly different. But I know we talked a lot about how important education is in the Baha'i Faith community. So could you tell us a little bit more about how education is implemented through the faith?
Absolutely. Yeah. So first of all, it's really special to be in this space and to just really imagine how vibrant it was with all these students here learning and cooperating and helping each other and all these scholars sharing knowledge. It's just it's amazing. I'm very honored to be here. The thing that's so wonderful about the Baha'i Institute, it is a worldwide institute. It is the way in which Baha'is and their friends and people in the community are learning how to build capacity. They're learning how to look at the Word of God, to look at spiritual lessons, and then figure out how can I apply these spiritual lessons to my practical life, right? So how can I build capacity to, take these maybe exalted concepts, and then bring them to reality.
Yes.
Right? And so this is where really the science education comes in as well.
Yeah.
So, the way in which problems and are approached are really through the scientific method.
Right.
So through, doing science experiments with kids, right? And we bring all sorts of fun science experiments to the Triangle Baha'i Institute for children to learn.
I love that.
Right? And they get really engaged in that and like doing their experiments and doing a hypothesis and seeing and testing it out and seeing if it works and reflecting on it and consulting about it and maybe redoing their model, that kind of thing. Like those lessons, you take that and you bring that into any kind of any kind of thing, not just science experiments, right? And so that's what's so beautiful about this institute is that, it marries like the practical and the spiritual.
Absolutely.
And, and science and religion are in harmony.
There we go. We love to see that. My husband's a scientist, so I get talked about the scientific method all the times, but I've seen how in practice he's used what he learned in school to apply to just our everyday life.
Exactly.
And hearing that that's happening at the Triangle Baha'i Institute is pretty cool.
It's very cool.
Yes, some similar things, of course, were happening here.
Yeah.
A little bit later on our tour, we're going to stop over at the Tea House, which was where some of the male students were able to do that. We also have a cottage on campus called Massachusetts Cottage, where a lot of the female students were able to learn how to put into practice everything that they were learning in their home economics classes.
Amazing.
So we had a little bit of that going on here at Palmer too. It's so good to know that that type of education is still around.
Yeah, absolutely. The best way to learn is to practice it or to teach somebody else.
Yes,
right?
The absolute best way. So we're here at the Tea House. The Tea House historically was a instrument that Dr. Brown and other teachers at Palmer used so the students could get some real life experience with some of the things that they were learning while they were in school. Historically, a male student, typically a high school senior, would run the snack shop so that all the other students could enjoy what was going on inside of there. But in him running that particular sweet shop, he'd be able to have some managerial skills, he'd be able to do some business purchasing, learn how to manage a cash register, all skills that he could use, later on in life. Another piece about this particular spot in campus is that we can see our farm equipment sitting right over here. In Palmer's earliest days, it was an agricultural and industrial institution. And so a lot of the students were coming here learning all about how to maintain a farm, how to do skills with their hands and things of that nature. We're hoping to revive a little bit of that with a community garden that'll hopefully be starting in just a couple of months. So can you talk a little bit more about the Triangle Baha'i Institute and how it's instilling these types of skills in its students?
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, community garden, right? So we just built one at the Triangle Baha'i Institute.
That's
awesome. The participants this summer, they were able to, on their own, well, not on their own, with some support,
of course,
get the wood and get the saws and create these raised beds. And now we've got vegetables and herbs and things like that right outside of the main institute building.
Yeah.
And so, it combines the spiritual lessons about caring for the earth and caring for God's creation, and then learning the science and the math that it takes in order to build something like that, and all, so that everyone can benefit. And we really are coherent with a lot of the things that the Palmer Institute is thinking about, because education is not just about what's in your head. Intellectual education is extremely important. It's extremely important to know how to think and to read and to write, but it's also important to know how to do things with your hands. It's also important to be able to bring that to do practical things with the knowledge that you're gaining. And so I love that they were teaching these practical skills. We're doing that kind of stuff at the Institute as well. So as they have this, the participants will often have spiritual education on one part of the day, and then later community members will actually come in and give practical lessons about the kinds of things that they're doing. So we've had people who are entrepreneurs, people who are florists, people who are videographers. We've had also dancers and singers. We've had all sorts of folks in the community come in and teach a little bit about what they do professionally, so that these mostly middle schoolers will get some ideas about what they can do in the future and get a little bit of practice. Yeah.
And as a former college admissions counselor, getting them to know all their possibilities super early is so beneficial. So that's beautiful work that y'all are doing.
No, we really love it, and it really just brings the whole community in. Because schools are not really just about the school itself, where it's walled off from the rest of the community. It's part of the community. And so when we can have the participants from the community come in, when we can have have the parents and the people from the neighborhood and all of those folks be part of the educational process, then it really makes everyone really be able to flourish.
Love that.
Yeah.
Thank you all so much for joining us today for a Baha'i at PMI. We had a great time taking you around campus to show you a little bit about the connections between the Baha'i Faith community and Palmer Memorial Institute. We want to give a special gratitude to Ms. Tasha Curry-Corcoran, there we go, who joined us today to tell us about all those beautiful connections. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So thank y'all again for being here. It's the end of our tour for today, but this doesn't have to be the last time that you interact with this information. Please feel free to like and share this video, share it with all the folks that you know so that they can learn more about these connections, and come take a visit at the Charlotte Hawkins Brown Museum. We'd love to have you.
All right, everyone. That's it. That's the whole kit and caboodle. We are going to take questions now. I sent everyone a chat, so we'll wait a couple of seconds for anyone who has any questions about the information that we covered today. We went through a lot. We really did. So I kind of hit a quick summary of what we've talked about, see if that sparks anything with anyone. We talked about, the history, of course, of Palmer Memorial Institute, how the school came to be here, Dr. Charlotte Hawkins Brown's role in creating the school. Miss Amy Bailey was our choir director between 1927 and 1936. She also spent some time as dean of the junior college here between 1938 and 1940. She was a member of the Baha'i Faith community even before there was an established community here in Greensboro. There were other prominent Baha'i Faith community members who also spoke on campus, Ruth Moffitt being one, and then another being Dorothy Baker. Miss Amy Bailey, we don't know exactly how she became a Baha'i, but we do know that she spent time in circles where other Baha'is would have been. That was during her singing career in New York. That was also during her time at Cheyney University, where the president, tell me the name again, Miss Tasha, because I didn't forgot.
Dr. Leslie Hill.
Dr. Leslie Hill, there we go, who was the president of Cheyney University at the time, and also ran in circles with folks like Alan Leroy Locke, dean of the Harlem Renaissance. Yeah, we've walked around the campus, saw how there might have been any connections with the Baha'i Faith on campus. A couple of places that we stopped were Charles Eliot Hall. And from that vantage point, Ms. Tasha mentioned that the entire view of the campus reminded her of the work that the Triangle Baha'i Institute is doing down in the Chapel Hill community. We also stopped at Dr. Brown's gravesite, where she rests here on our campus, to talk about the elevated position that educators have within the faith. Another thing we talked about is how a lot of practical skills are taught to the students through the Triangle Baha'i Institute, as well as the Rui Institute, so that students at this age can learn how to practically enact their faith in their life and also gain some skills, just like the students who might have been working in the tea house or working in Kimball Hall as wait staff for dinners, and those who are learning things over in Massachusetts Cottage on how to manage a home. So with that, if that brought up any questions for you, drop them down in the Q&A and we'll get started with answering them. Okay, I have quite a few. I'm going to go back to one that I did answer in the Q&A, and it is about Cheyney University, because we talked about this when we did our practice session yesterday. So arguably,
Here we go.
Cheyney University is the first HBCU, historically Black college or university. It is definitively the first one to be established, the first school for Black students to be established, 1837. But it was not the first degree granting institution. First degree granting institution was Lincoln University of Pennsylvania. So both of them are in Pennsylvania. So right there,
So was it Tuskegee? Okay.
Not Tuskegee. We're a little 1881, so we'll talk about that enough time, baby.
Yes, it's all good.
We're gonna have a good one for that one, but not us this time. But yeah, so you have those two kind of distinctions, because someone asked about it in the chat, and I was like, oh, that's so great. It's so perfect, because like I said, we had that discussion yesterday. Ooh, we got a few ones. Okay. Um, we have one that says, okay, you mentioned a few times the further research you want to do. What's one nugget you're most excited to learn more about? Ooh, you want to go first?
Oh my goodness. So thanks April for like getting me all into my history. She's got me pulling out books that well, you guys can't see this, but books that I haven't like pulled off my shelf in a while, like learning about all of these different historical figures in the faith. I would be interested in actually finding out what the talks were that these wonderful Baha'i women, Ruth Moffat and Dorothy Baker, gave at the Palmer Institute. I think that would be interesting to know. I mean, there was I know we saw something in one of the newspapers that talked a little bit about the topic or the
Mhm.
topics that Dorothy Baker in particular, I think were doing it because she did like a whole tour of different college campuses, like at the time, like A&T and Guilford and places like that. And so she was talking about like upliftment during the war and that kind of thing. And I'm sure she was talking about race unity. I'm sure she was talking about that, but it would be good to know specifically. We do know the song though. We know a
Yes.
song
Yes, we do.
that that when Ruth Moffat came, we know the song that the choir sang.
Yes.
And so, stay tuned for getting more details about that. But yeah, it sounded like a fun youth choir kind of song.
Yes, honestly, that is the exact same thing that I was gonna say. So
Okay.
I'm gonna switch gears, and I think one of the things you mentioned, you brought it up in there, is the music.
Yeah.
On Tasha's visit to the campus, she also mentioned a choir called the One True Family Choir. Did I get that correct?
One human
One
family.
Human
Yeah.
Family Choir that exists within the Baha'i community. I'm gonna let y'all in on a little secret. It is my hope and dream to revive the Sedalia singers because again, I love a good choir. And we can sing all the old stuff that the Sedalia singers used to sing. And I think finding the connections to the songs that Amy Bailey picked for the choir to sing, I'm absolutely fascinated by that.
Yeah.
Absolutely fascinated by that. Yes, thank you so much, Liz, for that one. Ooh, that was good. That was a really good start. Okay, we have another one. Did prominent African American Baha'i Louis Gregory ever speak at Palmer Institute?
Good question. I wondered the same thing. We don't know. We don't know.
Mhm.
It is highly possible, though, because we know that he was traveling around this area. We know that he spoke at other universities. I'm pretty sure he spoke at A&T. So it's possible that he also got to speak at the Palmer Institute. So, yeah. So both Dorothy Baker and Louis Gregory are both what the Baha'is refer to as hands of the cause.
Uh-huh.
So they really have an exalted station for all of the service that they offered to the community, all the teaching work that they did. Yeah, just really special souls.
I love it. I love it. That is a thank you for that name because that's not a name I ran across yet in our research. And so that's a amazing plug to look for. An
Hmm.
amazing plug to look for. And
Yeah,
even if he didn't speak here at Palmer, was he connected to any Palmer teachers? Was he connected to
probably.
any Palmer students? Anything like that?
Yeah, would
That
imagine.
gives us something.
It's given that circle of, like Black intellectuals and professionals and things like that, I would bet that he's connected somehow.
Absolutely. I love that question. Thank you so much for that one, William. Okay, so Stephen asks, does PMI have an archive of materials that scholars can search through? The answer is yes. So we
Ooh,
do have some letters, not
y'all are
all
gonna
of
meet
them.
Steven soon.
Come on down. We don't have everything here on campus, but we do have select letters. We have some of the old yearbooks from Palmer Memorial Institute, the Palmerite. We have some, like, of course, different artifacts from the school, like paintings. We actually do an art program with students where we show them paintings and other types of art that were made by Palmer students in their art classes.
Cool.
So that's really fun. We have old textiles and things like that from the campus. So we have a few things on campus, not a lot of the papers, like Dr. Brown's papers are not here. We have some things, but the majority of her papers are in another library. Someone asked me the name of that library earlier today, and I will have to make sure I link it somewhere once I find the name. But I know it's in the Northeast. I do know that. Yes. So thank you for that question, Stephen. Okay. So we have another from Kanar. So one, this is family. So I'm very thank you for joining.
Yay.
Um, so he asks, are there any connections between this institution and the HBCUs in the area? Yes, absolutely. So Palmer Memorial Institute was a high school, so it fed into some of the HBCUs in the area. There were also teachers here at Palmer who taught at other or who came from those institutions once they were done with their schooling and came to teach here. Dr. Brown also did a lot of connections with different HBCUs that are not in the area. And that's, I'll sneak in a little Tuskegee plug right here because I also went to Tuskegee. So,
Of
um,
course.
uh, at the, I got to shout out my people. I can't help it. So at the very beginning of Palmer's creation, there was a lot of focus on industrial and agricultural teachings, just like at Tuskegee. And Dr. Brown, we know, had some correspondence and an admiration for Booker T. Washington. She also stayed in contact with Robert Moton and Fred Patterson, who were our next two presidents. So there's lots of connections, and not just Tuskegee. There's quite a few that she has connections with because she's known to go speak at others. Let's see, Howard's president came here to speak a few times, typically on like career days and things like that. So there's a lot of connections that Palmer had because it was a boarding school for students from all over the nation. So it had a lot of connections to different HBCUs that were around. Thank you for that question. And of course, we didn't even mention Cheney. We just said it.
Right.
Amy
Yes.
Bailey went to Cheney and came on back right here to Palmer. I love it. Okay. So this is more so a comment rather than a question, but I want to make sure we read it. William writes, I like the resonance of Palmer's philosophy with what the Baha'i Institute is doing. That
Yeah.
is,
Me too. It was amazing.
yes. Okay. So Liz, this is a good one because this is the first thing I thought. Um, it's like you were in my brain when you asked your question. So Liz writes, also, I know that PMI and Dr. Brown had a strong Christian foundation and focus. Have you found interfaith work that Dr. Brown was doing or being done in interfaith work? What have you found about the experience of non-Christians at Palmer? That is what began this search because I knew that if Dr. Brown allowed both Dorothy Baker and Ruth Moffett to come here and speak to her students or on campus in general, there had to be something of value that she found within the faith or had to resonate with the teachings and what the folks were talking about because of her strong foundation in Christianity, right? And so that is one thing that we have not found it yet. But both speeches occurred during her time as president. She was president from 1902 until 1951. Those speeches were 1941 and 1942. So she had to have known who those folks were in order for them to be granted access to this campus and to her students. So we have not found it yet, but I am very hopeful that we will find something, whether it's just a comment about how she felt about their teachings, or that's what we're hoping. We got some more work to do. And hence, this is why it's a series.
More to come, everybody.
More to come. Yes, we have. Ooh, we got a lot. Ooh, okay. So Louis Pinckney taught at Tuskegee too. That's where he presented George Louis Gregory talking to his classes in 1912.
There you go. I know. Tuskegee always makes it back around.
We can't help it. We're just everywhere. Oh, that's my bias coming out, y'all. My bad. Yes, but I love that connection because again, that gives us a look at to who Dr. Brown is connecting Palmer to. Where are all the folks who come into campus? Now I want to know if Louis Pinckney Hill ever came down here to Palmer. What
Probably.
were his connections to the campus besides Amy Bailey? It's just giving us new avenues to look at for research and more programming. All right. So this is from April, and this is more a comment again. And it says, I never heard of the Baha'i Faith until now, and to know PMI has connections to the faith is amazing. So y'all are educating. We're doing the work.
Yeah, we're doing, we're out here trying to teach the people.
I love it. I love it. Okay. Okay, so I apologize. I think Gyro is how you pronounce your name. If I'm saying that incorrectly, please let me know. Um, the let's see. Abdul Baha. I want to make sure that I said that correctly.
Yeah, that's good.
Oh, Perfect. Okay, spoke at Howard University in 1912. That infused other activities in the HBCU today. I'm not exactly sure what you're asking, Gyro, but please re-ask your question so I can make sure that we understand it clearly, okay? So go ahead and re-ask that for me. Okay. Liz puts in another plug for a virtual lecture that I know she coordinated for the CHB Museum virtual lecture from 2023. And there you can learn more about early Cheney history. And that one is awesome. I have listened to that one. Liz, you did your big one. It was great. And that one is titled Black Women's Radicalism in the 19th Century. You can
Yes.
find it on CHB's YouTube page, and it is chock full of information about how Cheney started and about other women who were doing phenomenal work in the beginning of the 19th century. So shout
That's
out to Liz and the work that she did on our
okay,
virtual
Liz.
lecture series. Yes. Okay. So let's see what else we got.
Here, I think I can see the Gyro's question. So I
Okay.
think it's actually more than um, he's wondering whether or not. So Abdul Baha is the son of Baha'u'llah, who was the founder of the Baha'i Faith,
Uh-huh.
and so he came. So Abdul Baha came and visited the United States in 1912, and one of the stops that he made was at Howard University.
Oh,
And so, yeah, and so a lot of people learned about the Baha'i Faith through his visits and talks that he gave. And this visit, that speech in particular at Howard was really powerful. And so he's just was referring to that. And I believe the question is just around like, did that inspire a lot of other activities at HBCUs? Probably, I don't know if we know that specifically, but I would imagine that 1912, and then we have all this other types of activity that's happening across the country. So for sure, his visit was extremely impactful and inspirational.
I love that. I love that. And that's not something I knew at all. So again, y'all are teach us all the things. And again, that's another avenue that we can open up for research,
Yeah.
like thinking about
Yeah.
how his speech, what influence that had. And same thing for Ruth Moffett was her visit somewhat similar, kind of
Mhm.
sort of. So
Yeah.
that's another avenue for research. We love it. Thank you so much, Gyro, for retyping your question. Thank you. Okay, let's see. We have another just comment from Jeff. He says, this was really interesting, inspiring, and informative. Thank you so much for putting this on. Wonderful job, both of you. Thank you, Jeff, for attending. Yes. Okay, so let's see. Radcliffe, Kathy, thank you. Keep us together, okay? Brown's papers are at the Radcliffe Institute
Oh,
for
okay.
Advanced Study
Nice.
at Harvard University.
Yes.
And Harvard is actually very close to where her family grew up in Cambridge. So the campus itself is not far from the neighborhood where she grew up. That's awesome.
Right.
Oh, that is great. And Kathy also said, I think I just read Charlotte Hawkins Brown's papers are at Radcliffe's archives, which makes sense because she did spend some time up at Harvard. Very cool. Thank you, Kathy, for keeping us together. Was there a campus newsletter? Now, Stephen, that one I am unsure of. We do have a newsletter now that goes out to just tell folks about our events and things of that nature. But campus, I have not seen yet. I'm still kind of new, so I have a lot more to learn about the site. But I have not seen yet an actual campus newsletter. There were like promotional pamphlets about the campus that went out to folks, mostly for marketing, for getting students admissions papers and things like that. So I know that we had some of that on campus, but an actual newsletter in the way that I'm thinking of a newsletter, I am unsure. Yes. Okay. I'm making sure I'm clicking out all of our questions and I know. Yes. Okay. Ah, and here, Stephen, coming with the facts. And this will be our last question. Thank you all so much for engaging with us. But it's not necessarily a question, but another comment for another research opportunity for us, right? So he says that there was a conference in Durham in 1925, and Leslie Hill commended Keith Ransom Keller to speak at, and was well received. Miss Palmer, maybe Miss Palmer went to that. Or Dr. Brown, I'm assuming because Miss Palmer by that time had passed away, but Dr. Brown went to that conference. I love it.
Maybe.
I'm going to have to save all of these chats so that I know exactly, how to, all the names that we got to pull for our research. Yes. Okay. And I lied. We got one more. One more.
One more question. Okay,
One more
yes.
question. And I think because I also think you're going to do well on this one. So I want us to get this one.
Okay.
Okay. So considering the South, this is from April. Considering the South was heavily segregated and racially bound, how was the Baha'i Faith able to sustain their ideals and principles of racial unity at such a harsh time?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Through the assistance of God. I mean, I don't know, there's a lot of power in having vision and faith, right? And
Hmm.
so for people who were attracted to these teachings about the oneness of mankind, and especially at that time when you maybe weren't, when people really probably weren't seeing it that well. I mean,
Right.
really, I don't have any other explanation than faith, right? I mean, they just had the faith that it was going to go, and I'm so grateful that they did, because we wouldn't be where we are today without these people who, were so steadfast in their belief that, America and the world really can be racially harmonized.
Mhm.
Um, and in many ways we have done that. In many ways we still have struggles, and in many ways we still have to operate on faith that humanity can live up to its potential.
I love that. Oh, I love that. This is the perfect ending. The perfect ending that we've come away. We have more to go.
Yeah,
We have more to go, and we can
exactly.
continuously work to build the world that we want to see.
We can.
I love it. I love it. So thank you all so, so much. You provided us with phenomenal questions, absolutely phenomenal questions about the Charlotte Hawkins Brown Museum, about the Baha'i Faith and its connections to Palmer, about how the Baha'is have been doing great work so much in these communities, and how their prominent figures are both connected to Palmer and connected to the greater story of human history in so many ways. So we want to thank you, Tasha, more
Thank
than
you.
anything, for coming
Yeah,
through and one, coming to campus for the first time,
I know.
and
It was great.
mentioning your faith, because I'm a big believer in things are supposed to happen, things happen for a reason. And we
Yeah,
were supposed to meet that day, and this program was supposed to happen because everyone who came, I think, learned something new. Everyone who came is walking away with new insight in some way, shape, or form, or learning about something that they never knew before. And for that, I am eternally grateful. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
you're welcome. Thank you.
As thank you all again for joining us. We know you could have been anywhere in the world at 6 p.m. on a Wednesday night. So we are so happy that you joined us here on Zoom at the Charlotte Hawkins Brown Museum. Keep updated with us through Facebook, primarily is where we will post a lot of our event content. Coming up next, we have Christmas in Sedalia, which will be taking place on December 13th at 5 o'clock p.m. to 7:30. We're going to have a Christmas market, a big tree lighting ceremony. A few choirs are going to come sing. This is going to be my favorite part. We have food trucks, vendors, and all the good stuff. Santa will be in the building. So y'all come
Nice.
on, bring all your family for a fun celebration of the holiday season. We thank you again for joining us this evening, and we hope you all have a great rest of your night. Bye.
Bye.